They say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But what if that corruption had a name, a face, and a throne in the depths of hell? Welcome to Pantheon mythology, and these are the 7 princes of hell. But quickly before we descend into the underworld, a quick reminder, if you're passionate about mythology, check out our clothing brand, Pantheon Apparel. We offer epic designs inspired by the myths, legends, and folklore that define cultures worldwide. We ship globally and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. You can find the link in the description below. Alright, let's plunge into the abyss. Lucifer holds a prominent place among the 7 princes of hell, representing the sin of pride. His story originates from various religious and mythological traditions, where he was once revered as the Lightbringer or Morning Star. This title reflected his role as a powerful and radiant angel in heaven, known for his extraordinary beauty and wisdom. However, these very qualities ultimately led to his downfall. Lucifer's pride grew so immense that he began to believe he could rival God himself. This belief drove him to rebel against God's authority, leading to his dramatic fall from grace. Lucifer's rebellion is one of the most well-known stories in religious texts. It wasn't merely an act of defiance, it was an outright revolt against the creator of the universe. In his pride, Lucifer sought to elevate himself above God, convinced he deserved a greater power and status. This hubris was met with severe consequences. God cast Lucifer out of heaven, stripping him of his former glory and condemning him to hell, symbolizing his transformation from a shining angel to the ruler of darkness. In the hierarchy of the 7 princes of hell, Lucifer's role as the embodiment of pride is essential. His story serves as a powerful warning about the dangers of excessive pride and ambition. Through his fall, Lucifer illustrates how even the highest and most favored beings can be brought low by their arrogance. His narrative is often used in religious teachings to highlight the destructive power of pride and the importance of humility. Lucifer's role extends beyond just symbolizing pride. He is depicted as the leader of the fallen angels, commanding legions of demons and overseeing other princes who represent the remaining deadly sins, such as greed, wrath, and envy. His authority in hell is portrayed as supreme, making him not only a symbol of rebellion, but also the orchestrator of the evil that pervades the world. This role emphasizes his position as a central figure in the cosmic battle between good and evil, influencing both the spiritual and moral realms. Therefore, Lucifer's story is not only a cautionary tale, but also a depiction of the ongoing struggle between divine order and chaos. Beelzebub, whose name is derived from the ancient Philistine god Baal-zebub, which means Lord of the Flies, is associated with the deadly sin of gluttony. Over time, this name was corrupted in Judeo-Christian tradition, becoming synonymous with one of the most powerful demons in hell, second only to Lucifer in many interpretations. The origins of Beelzebub trace back to ancient religious practices, particularly within the Philistine city of Ekron, where he was worshipped as a god who could protect against pestilence, symbolized by flies. In the Hebrew Bible, Beelzebub is mentioned in the context of a deity whose powers were sought by King Ahaziah. However, as monotheistic religions emerged, Beelzebub's status shifted from a pagan god to a demonic figure, representing everything corrupt and vile. In Christian demonology, Beelzebub is often portrayed as a high-ranking demon, sometimes equated with Satan himself or as one of his chief lieutenants. By the Middle Ages, Beelzebub had become firmly entrenched in Christian law as a malevolent force, symbolizing extreme indulgence and the insatiable desire for more, which naturally led to his association with gluttony. As the Prince of Gluttony, Beelzebub's role within the infernal hierarchy is crucial. Gluttony, in the context of the 7 deadly sins, goes beyond mere overeating. It encompasses the excessive consumption of anything to the point of waste. Beelzebub's influence encourages individuals to indulge beyond their needs or means, feeding an unending hunger for more, whether it be food, wealth, power, or even attention. This sin leads to spiritual decay, as the gluttonous person becomes increasingly self-centered and disconnected from the needs of others. Beelzebub's role extends beyond just symbolizing gluttony. He's often depicted as a corrupting force, leading people to prioritize their desires above all else. His influence is seen in the overindulgence that can lead to the destruction of one's physical health, relationships, and spiritual well-being. In this sense, Beelzebub embodies the dangers of excess and the moral and physical degradation that can result from it. Asmodeus is the prince of hell who embodies the deadly sin of lust. Origins can be traced back to ancient mythology and religious texts, where he's often portrayed as a powerful demon associated with desire, corruption, and temptation. Asmodeus' name is believed to derive from the Avestan language of ancient Persia, specifically from the term Ashmediva, which roughly translates as demon of wrath. Over time, this figure evolved into a symbol of lust and carnal sin, especially within the Judeo-Christian traditions. Asmodeus' roots lie in various ancient cultures. In Zoroastrianism, he's connected to Ashma, a demon known for inciting violence and rage. This character later transitioned into Jewish mythology, where Asmodeus became a prominent figure in demonology. He's most famously mentioned in the book of Tobit, where he's depicted as a demon who kills the 7 husbands of Sarah out of jealousy and lust, preventing them from consummating their marriages. This tale positions Asmodeus as a figure who embodies the destructive and possessive aspects of lust. In the medieval period, Asmodeus' reputation as a demon of lust solidified. Christian demonologists frequently identified him as one of the principal demons responsible for corrupting humanity through illicit desires and sexual immorality. His influence is often depicted as insidious, leading people to commit acts of infidelity, debauchery, and perversion, all of which distance them from spiritual purity. As the prince associated with lust, Asmodeus plays a critical role in the infernal hierarchy. Lust, as one of the 7 deadly sins, encompasses more than just physical desire. It represents an overwhelming and insatiable craving for pleasure, often at the expense of morality and virtue. Asmodeus' influence encourages individuals to prioritize their base desires over their spiritual and ethical obligations, leading to their downfall. His role as the embodiment of lust is not just about physical attraction, but also about the broader implication of unchecked desires, including the pursuit of power, wealth, and other forms of excess that can corrupt the soul. Leviathan holds a significant role, symbolizing envy and representing the bitter longing for what others possess, whether it be wealth, status, or even spiritual gifts. Leviathan's origins are deeply rooted in ancient mythology and religious texts, where he's depicted as a monstrous sea serpent or dragon, symbolizing chaos and destruction. His name is derived from the Hebrew word Leviathan, meaning twisted or coiled, and he's mentioned several times in the Bible, most notably in the books of Job, Psalms, and Isaiah. Leviathan's mythological roots stretch back to ancient Near Eastern cultures, particularly in the Canaanite mythology, where similar sea monsters such as Lotan are described. In the Hebrew Bible, Leviathan is depicted as a powerful and terrifying creature of the sea, representing the chaotic forces that oppose God's order, and in the book of Job, Leviathan is described in great detail, emphasizing his invincibility and terrifying nature, which made him a symbol of untamable chaos. In Christian demonology, Leviathan's role evolved from a symbol of chaos to one of 7 princes of hell, where he represents envy. This association likely stems from Leviathan's depiction as a creator that stirs up the seas, symbolizing the stirring of envy in the hearts of men. As the embodiment of envy, Leviathan's influence is seen in the resentment and jealousy that can consume individuals, leading them to destructive behavior. Envy, one of the 7 deadly sins, involves the bitter longing for what others possess, whether it be wealth, status, or even spiritual gifts. Leviathan's influence encourages individuals to dwell on their dissatisfaction, fostering resentment and a desire to see others brought low. This sin is particularly insidious because it not only harms the individual harboring envy, but also damages relationships and communities. In this role, Leviathan is often depicted as a creature that ensnares and entraps, much like how envy can entangle a person's heart and mind. His influence is subtle yet pervasive, turning admiration into resentment and sowing discord among even the closest of relationships. Belphegor is deeply intertwined with the sin of sloth, embodying spiritual laziness, apathy, and the avoidance of responsibility. His origins trace back to ancient mythology and religious traditions where he is depicted as a demon who lures people into complacency with the promise of ease and indulgence. Belphegor's name is believed to be derived from the Moabite deity Baal Peor, a god worshipped in the ancient Near East. This deity was associated with licentiousness and indulgence. In the Hebrew Bible, specifically in the Book of Numbers, the Israelites are led into sin through the worship of Baal Peor, engaging in immoral acts and idolatry. This connection between Belphegor and indulgence in sinful pleasure laid the groundwork for his later depiction in Christian demonology and the demon of sloth. During the medieval period, Belphegor's role evolved into that of a tempter who seduces humans with the promise of wealth and invention, encouraging them to abandon hard work and moral responsibility in favor of easy gains. He is often portrayed as a demon who offers clever ideas or inventions that promise quick riches, but ultimately lead to laziness. This association with innovation and invention stems from the belief that Belphegor could deceive people into believing that their successes and happiness could be achieved without effort. As the Prince of Sloth, Belphegor's influence is subtle but deeply corrupting. Sloth, as one of the 7 deadly sins, involves not just physical laziness but a profound indifference to spiritual and moral duties. Belphegor's role is to encourage this indifference, leading individuals to neglect their responsibilities both to themselves and to others. This sin is particularly dangerous because it can lead to complete withdrawal from the pursuit of good, allowing evil to flourish unchecked. Belphegor's methods are often insidious. He does not force people into inaction, but rather tempts them with thoughts of comfort, ease, and the false promise that their goals can be achieved without hard work. His influence can lead to procrastination, a lack of ambition, and ultimately a life devoid of purpose and meaning. In this way, Belphegor represents the destructive potential of sloth, showing how it can erode both individual potential and societal progress. Mamon is deeply associated with the sin of greed, symbolizing the relentless craving for wealth and material possessions. Rather than being derived from a single mythological or religious figure, Mamon represents the broader concept of avarice, reflecting the destructive influence of money and materialism across cultures and history. His name, which has ancient linguistic roots, has come to stand for the moral and spiritual dangers that arise when the pursuit of wealth overshadows all other values. The name Mamon is believed to originate from the Aramaic word mamona, which means wealth or riches. This term is used in the New Testament, particularly in the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus warns that no one can serve 2 masters. You cannot serve both God and Mammon. Here, Mammon is not just a reference to wealth, but is personified as a false god or demon that leads people away from spiritual values and towards the pursuit of material wealth. In medieval Christian thought, Mammon evolved into a representation of the sin of greed. He was often depicted as a demon who tempts humans to prioritize wealth and earthly possessions over spiritual well-being. This personification of greed as Mammon emphasizes the dangers of allowing material desires to overshadow moral and spiritual duties. As the Prince of Greed, Mammon is characterized by an insatiable desire for wealth, power, and possessions, often at the expense of others. Mammon's influence encourages individuals to place their pursuit of material wealth above all else, leading to moral corruption, exploitation, and disregard for the well-being of others. Mammon's power lies in his ability to exploit human weakness, turning the natural desire for security and comfort into an overwhelming obsession with wealth. His presence in religious and cultural narratives serves as a stark reminder for the corrosive effects of greed, both on the individual and on society as a whole. Satan, the embodiment of wrath, is often depicted as the ultimate adversary in religious and cultural narratives. His name, of Hebrew origin meaning adversary or accuser, reflects his role as the tempter and deceiver, opposing God and leading humanity astray. While Satan's representation has evolved over time, he is consistently portrayed as a figure of immense power, rage, and rebellion. His origins are deeply rooted in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, Satan is originally a title, describing an accuser or an adversary rather than a specific being. Over time, this figure became more personified, particularly in Christian theology, where Satan is identified as the serpent in the Garden of Eden. As the Prince of Wrath, Satan personifies the destructive power of anger and hatred. Wrath is characterized by uncontrollable feelings of rage, vengeance, and malice. Satan's influence stirs these emotions in humans, driving them to commit acts of violence, cruelty, and destruction. His role is not just to embody wrath, but to incite it in others, leading to a cycle of sin and retribution that perpetuates suffering and chaos. Satan's wrath is often depicted as a source of his strength, but also his downfall, illustrating the self-destructive nature of unchecked anger. His eternal opposition to God and goodness is fueled by his insatiable wrath, making him the central figure in the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Through this role, Satan illustrates how wrath can consume and corrupt, leading to both spiritual and physical ruin. And so there you have it, the 7 princes of hell, each a manifestation of the darkest corners of the human soul. These aren't just figures of myth, they are reflections of the very vices that can shape or shatter our lives. The real question is, which of these sins do we allow to rule over us?